The rain had been falling since dusk, the kind that didn't announce itself with thunder but crept in quietly, tapping the windows like it had something to confess. Our apartment always felt smaller on nights like that. The yellow light in the hallway flickered, the radiator hissed, and the air smelled faintly of detergent and old coffee. Routine wrapped itself around me like a blanket I wasn't sure still fit. I lived with Ethan for 8 months by then. My straight roommate. My accidental constant. He was the kind of man who filled rooms without trying. Broad shoulders, careless smiles, laughter that came too easily. He talked about women the way other people talked about the weather, casually, without thinking anyone might be listening too closely. I always was. I told myself I didn't notice the way his shirts clung to him after the gym. I told myself the knot in my chest was just envy, not longing. Lies are easier when they sound practical. That night began like any other. He tossed his keys onto the counter, muttered something about a long day, and disappeared into his room. The door clicked shut. Normal. Predictable. Safe. I heated leftovers and ate alone, scrolling mindlessly on my phone, listening to the rain blur the city outside. Somewhere between my second bite and my third, I realized how quiet the apartment had become. Too quiet. No music from Ethan's room. No phone calls. Just the rain and my own breathing. I tried to shake the feeling. Curiosity is a dangerous thing when you already know you shouldn't have it. Then I heard it. A sound. Soft. Almost swallowed by the walls. A low, unfamiliar rhythm that made my fork pause midair. I leaned back, heart suddenly loud in my ears. It wasn't laughter. It wasn't a call. It was something private, something I was never meant to hear. My first instinct was guilt. Don't listen. My second was worse. Why does it sound like that? I stood up, telling myself I needed water, that I was just restless. Each step toward the hallway felt heavier than the last. The light flickered again, briefly casting shadows that stretched too long along the floor. Ethan's door was closed. Always closed. But the sound slipped through anyway, curling under the frame like a secret. My mind raced, offering explanations I didn't want to accept. A girl, a call, something else entirely. The idea of him with someone, anyone, twisted something deep inside me. I pressed my back to the wall, palms damp, caught between leaving and listening. This is wrong, I thought. But what if I'm wrong about him? The rain intensified, masking the sound for a moment. Then it stopped again, clearer now. Intentional. Alive. I retreated to my room, heart pounding, shutting the door a little too hard. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall we shared, wondering how someone could be so close and still feel impossibly distant. I told myself it didn't matter. That whatever Ethan was doing was none of my business. But as I lay there, fully awake, one question refused to let me rest. What if the thing I thought I knew about him was the biggest lie of all? Morning arrived without ceremony. The rain had washed the streets clean, leaving the city smelling like wet concrete and leaves. Pale light slid through the blinds, landing in thin stripes across my bed. For a moment, I forgot about the night before. For a moment, everything was normal again. Then I heard the shower running. Ethan's shower. The sound traveled through the walls, steady and familiar, but it did something strange to me now. It pulled me back into the questions I'd buried under my pillow. I lay there longer than I should have, staring at the ceiling, counting my breaths like it might slow my thoughts. Get up. Act normal. That became my mantra. By the time I reached the kitchen, Ethan was already there, toweling his hair, wearing nothing but sweatpants slung low on his hips. Steam followed him like a second skin. He looked relaxed, unbothered, as if nothing unusual had happened at all. Morning, he said, voice rough, easy. Morning, I replied, hoping my face didn't betray me. He poured coffee, leaned against the counter, and scrolled through his phone. The ordinary intimacy of it, the way we shared space without thinking, felt heavier now. Charged. Every movement seemed louder, every silence longer. I watched him from the corner of my eye. No guilt, no nervousness, just Ethan being Ethan. So what did I hear? I wondered. He talked about work, complained about traffic, joked about a coworker. I nodded, laughed when expected, answered automatically. But my mind kept drifting back to the wall between our rooms, to the sound that had crossed it so easily. After breakfast, he grabbed his jacket and keys. Heading out early tonight, he said. Might crash at a friend's place. A friend's place. The words lodged themselves somewhere uncomfortable. I forced a casual shrug. Cool. The door closed behind him, and the apartment exhaled. I stood there longer than necessary, staring at the door like it might open again with answers instead of questions. That day dragged. Time stretched in strange ways, folding back on itself. I tried to work, tried to distract myself, but my thoughts kept circling one idea: what if I was wrong about him? Ethan was straight, in the way some men declare it loudly, often, as if repetition could cement reality. Girlfriends came and went. Stories were shared. Boundaries were assumed. But assumptions have cracks. Night fell again, quieter this time. No rain, just the hum of the city and the low buzz of my phone lighting up the room. Midnight passed. Then 1. Ethan hadn't come home. I told myself it didn't matter. He said he might stay out. Still, the absence pressed against me, filling the apartment with a hollow echo. I wandered into the living room, sat on the couch, and stared at the blank TV. At 1:47 a.m., I heard the door unlock. My heart jumped before I could stop it. Ethan stepped inside, moving slower than usual. He didn't turn on the lights right away. The hallway glow framed him in shadow, softening his edges. His jacket hung loose in his hands, forgotten. You're up? He asked quietly, surprised. Couldn't sleep, I said. He nodded, like he understood more than I'd said. For a second, neither of us moved. The air between us felt thick, weighted with things unsaid. You okay? I asked. Yeah, just tired. He sounded off. Not drunk, not upset, just distant, like his mind was somewhere else entirely. He walked past me, close enough that I caught a scent I didn't recognize. Not perfume, something warmer, human. That night, the sounds returned. Not immediately. They waited until the apartment settled, until I lay in bed pretending to sleep. Then, soft footsteps, a door closing, a pause, and then that rhythm again. Slower this time, controlled, intentional. My chest tightened, my body reacted before my mind could catch up. I pressed my ear against the pillow, hating myself for listening, hating myself more for wanting to understand. This wasn't a call, this wasn't background noise, this was Ethan, alone, or not. The wall felt thinner than ever. The next few days blurred together. We danced around each other, our conversations clipped, our glances longer. He started staying out more, coming home later, sometimes not at all. When he was home, he seemed restless, pacing, distracted. I noticed things I'd never noticed before. How often he watched me when he thought I wasn't looking. How his voice dropped when it was just the two of us. How his jokes sometimes carried an edge, like he was testing something invisible. One evening, the power went out. It was sudden. The lights blinked once, twice, then surrendered to darkness. The city outside went quiet, as if holding its breath. I heard Ethan swear softly from the kitchen. Breakers old, he said. Happens sometimes. He grabbed candles from a drawer, lighting them one by one. The flickering glow changed everything. Shadows danced along the walls. Familiar rooms looked unfamiliar, intimate. We sat across from each other at the table, faces half lit, half hidden. This place feels different like this, I said. Yeah, he replied, like we're somewhere else. The silence stretched, but it wasn't empty. It hummed. Can I ask you something? He said suddenly. My pulse spiked. Sure. He hesitated, looked down at his hands. I'd never seen him hesitate like that before. Do you ever feel like people only see what they want to see? He asked. Like they decide who you are before you get a chance to say it yourself. The question hit too close. All the time, I admitted. He looked up then, really looked at me. The candlelight caught in his eyes, making them darker, unreadable. I don't think I've been honest, he said quietly. With myself. Or with you. My throat went dry. About what? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stood, walked toward the window, stared out into the black city. There's stuff I've been trying not to think about, he said. Stuff that keeps coming back. I stayed seated, afraid that if I moved, the moment would break. Like what? I asked, barely above a whisper. He turned to face me. The candlelight carved sharp lines across his face. Vulnerable. Exposed. Like why I can't sleep, he said. Like why being here feels safer than anywhere else. Like why you're the first person I think about when things get complicated. My heart pounded so hard I was sure he could hear it. The power snapped back on without warning, flooding the room with harsh white light. The spell shattered. Ethan blinked, stepped back, ran a hand through his hair. Sorry, he muttered. That was weird. He retreated to his room, closing the door softly behind him. I sat there long after the candles burned down, replaying every word, every look. My mind raced ahead, imagining truths I wasn't sure I was ready to face. Because if Ethan was questioning himself, what did that make me? And if the wall between us had already started to crack, what would happen the moment it finally came down? The night everything shifted didn't announce itself as important. It slipped in quietly, like all the others, wearing the disguise of routine. Ethan came home earlier than usual. I was on the couch, laptop open but untouched, the glow reflecting off a screen filled with words I hadn't read in an hour. The door opened, closed. Keys dropped into the bowl with a dull clink. I didn't look up right away, but I felt him there, his presence heavy, unsettled. You're home early, I said. Yeah. His voice was tight. Can we talk? Those 3 words landed harder than anything else he could have said. I shut the laptop and set it aside. Sure. He didn't sit. He paced, dragging a hand through his hair, stopping by the window, then turning back toward me like he was being pulled in opposite directions. I ran into someone tonight, he said. My chest tightened. Someone. He nodded. An old friend. From college. I waited, every nerve tuned to the space between his words. He asked me something, Ethan continued. Something I didn't expect. Something I thought I'd buried. I stood slowly, not sure why. Maybe I needed to be on my feet to face whatever was coming. What did he ask? I said. Ethan finally met my eyes. His expression wasn't guarded anymore. It was stripped bare, raw in a way I'd never seen. He asked me if I was still lying, he said. The room felt smaller, hotter. About what? I asked, even though some part of me already knew. Ethan let out a shaky breath. About who I'm attracted to. Silence crashed down between us. I should have spoken, should have said something reassuring, something neutral. Instead, my thoughts collided into chaos, hope tangling with fear, desire wrestling guilt. And what did you say? I asked. I laughed, he said bitterly. Like it was a joke. Like it couldn't possibly be true. He stepped closer, just one step, but it felt like miles collapsing. But it didn't feel like a joke, he added. It felt like he was holding up a mirror I've been avoiding. My pulse roared in my ears. I don't know why I'm telling you this, Ethan said. Except, I do. I swallowed hard. Why? Because you've seen me, he said quietly. Even when I didn't want to be. The air between us hummed, charged with everything we hadn't said over months of shared space and silent longing. I could feel my hands trembling at my sides. This isn't fair, I said suddenly. You can't just drop this on me. I know, he said quickly. I know, and I'm not asking you to fix anything. He stopped, took another step closer. I could smell him now, familiar and unsettling. I can't pretend anymore, he said. Not tonight. My heart pounded painfully. Say something. Stop this. But my body betrayed me, rooted in place, drawn forward by something I'd denied for too long. You don't know what you're doing, I whispered. I do, he said. And that's what scares me. His hand lifted, hovering between us, not touching. The space felt intentional, respectful, electric. I think about you, he admitted. More than I should, more than makes sense. The confession hit me like a wave. I took a step back, guilt flooding in. This could ruin everything, I said. Our home, our friendship. I know, he said. That's why I fought it. He laughed softly, without humor. Do you know how exhausting it is to police your own thoughts? To convince yourself you're someone you're not. I shook my head. You think I don't know that feeling? That stopped him. For a moment, we just stared at each other, two truths colliding in the open. I don't want to hurt you, he said. And I don't want to hurt myself anymore either. My chest ached. I could feel the weight of the choice pressing down on me. If I leaned in, even slightly, there would be no going back. Ethan, I said softly, if we cross this line. I know, he said. Everything changes. He waited, didn't move, gave me the space to decide. My mind screamed warnings. This is dangerous. This is messy. But another voice, quieter, older, whispered something else. This is honest. I stepped forward, not into his arms, not into anything irreversible, just close enough that the air between us disappeared. His breath caught. Tell me to stop, he said. I searched his face, every familiar line suddenly new. I can't, I said. His hand brushed mine, barely a touch, accidental enough to be deniable, deliberate enough to mean everything. The contact sent a shock through me, sharp and undeniable. We froze. The world narrowed to that single point of connection. I could feel his pulse through his fingers. Could feel how badly he was holding back. This is a bad idea, I whispered. Probably, he agreed. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. A sound broke the moment, the buzz of his phone on the counter. Loud, jarring, reality crashing back in. Ethan jerked his hand away like he'd been burned. He stared at the phone, then at me, panic flickering across his face. I can't, he said suddenly. I'm sorry. I need time. Before I could respond, he grabbed his jacket and keys, moving past me too fast, knocking into the chair. Ethan, I started. He stopped at the door but didn't turn around. I meant everything I said, he told the wall. That's why I have to leave. The door closed behind him, the sound echoing through the apartment. I stood there alone, heart racing, skin still buzzing from a touch that hadn't even fully happened. The line had been drawn, and erased, in the same breath. As the silence settled, one thought refused to let me breathe easy. If that was restraint, what would happen the next time we stopped pretending? I stayed awake longer than I should have, the apartment wrapped in a silence that felt too deliberate to be accidental. Every small sound, the refrigerator humming, the pipes clicking, made my body tense, like I was waiting for the door to open and undo what had just happened. But it didn't. Morning crept in slowly, pale and indifferent. The light exposed everything I'd tried not to think about. His empty chair at the table. His untouched mug by the sink. Proof that the moment wasn't a dream. I moved through the apartment on autopilot, brushing my teeth, making coffee I didn't want, checking my phone too often. No message. No missed call. Nothing. He said he needed time. Time felt like a threat. When he finally came back, it was late afternoon. I heard the familiar jingle of keys, slower than usual, hesitant. My chest tightened as if bracing for impact. I stayed where I was, on the couch, afraid that if I moved, I'd make things worse. Ethan stepped inside and froze when he saw me. Hey, he said. Hey, I replied. That was it. No explanation. No apology. Just two syllables standing in for everything we were avoiding. He set his bag down carefully, like sudden movements might break something fragile. His eyes flicked to me, then away, then back again. You okay? He asked. I almost laughed. Instead, I nodded. Yeah, you. He hesitated. I don't know. That honesty cut deeper than any excuse would have. We existed in parallel that evening. Shared space without touching it. He cooked dinner. I pretended to read. Our movements were cautious, deliberate, like we were learning the apartment all over again. At one point, our hands brushed while reaching for the same glass. We both pulled back instantly. Sorry, he said at the same time I did. Our eyes met, and something unspoken passed between us, recognition, restraint, regret. The moment stretched, heavy and unstable, before Ethan turned away. I should probably keep my distance for a bit, he said quietly. Until I figure things out. The words made sense. They were reasonable. They still hurt. Right, I said. Of course. That night, The wall between our rooms felt thicker than ever. Not because of silence, but because of awareness. I knew when he shifted in bed. He knew when I did. The knowledge sat between us, constant and electric. Days passed, then weeks. Ethan became careful with his words. With his glances. Too careful. He stopped changing shirts in common spaces. Stopped joking the way he used to. But sometimes, just sometimes, I'd catch him watching me when he thought I wasn't looking. His expression unreadable. Torn. I told myself I should be relieved. That this distance was healthy. Safer. But safety has a way of feeling like loss. One evening, I came home early and found him sitting on the floor of the living room, back against the couch, staring at nothing. The lights were off. The room was dim, shadowed. "You okay?" I asked gently. He looked up, startled. "Yeah. Just thinking." I sat across from him, leaving space between us. "About?" I asked. He shrugged. "About how some doors don't close once you notice they exist." The words hung there, fragile. "I don't regret talking to you," he added quickly. "I just don't know what to do with what it means." "I don't either," I admitted. We sat in silence, the kind that isn't empty but full of things waiting to be said. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard his door open. Footsteps. A pause. My breath caught, irrational hope flaring before I could stop it. Then his door closed again. Nothing happened. And somehow, that felt louder than anything else. The next morning, Ethan mentioned he'd been offered a temporary work transfer. Another city, a few months, maybe longer. "I haven't decided yet," he said casually, like it didn't matter. But it did. The idea of him leaving stirred something uneasy in my chest, not relief, not panic, but something unresolved, unfinished. As he walked out the door, he hesitated, hand on the knob. "We'll talk," he said. Not a question, a promise, or a warning. I watched the door close behind him, wondering which it was. Because the space between us was no longer empty. It was charged with everything we hadn't crossed. And everything we still might. Even on days when we laughed again, careful, measured laughter, it felt like we were acting out a version of ourselves that no longer existed. Every interaction carried an echo of what almost happened, what nearly crossed a line we both pretended was still intact. Ethan took the transfer. He told me over breakfast, voice steady, eyes avoiding mine. 2 months. Maybe 3. Temporary, he said, like that word could soften the impact. "That's good," I replied automatically. "A change might help." He studied me then, searching for something I didn't know how to give. "Relief. Permission. Forgiveness." "Yeah," he said. "That's what I thought too." The days before he left were strangely tender. We fell back into old habits, shared meals, late-night conversations, but something fragile threaded through them now. We spoke around the truth, circling it carefully, like acknowledging it might make it real in a way we weren't ready to face. On his last night, the power went out again. I almost laughed at the irony. Candles. Shadows. The same quiet tension pressing in from the walls. We didn't mention the last time it happened. We didn't need to. "I'll be back," Ethan said, standing by the door to his room. "We'll figure things out." "Yeah," I said. "We will." He hesitated, hand hovering over the doorknob, the same way his hand had hovered between us weeks ago. "For what it's worth," he added softly, "you didn't imagine any of it." My chest tightened. Neither did you. That was all. No confession. No resolution. Just an acknowledgement that what passed between us was real, even if we didn't know what to do with it. The morning he left, I helped him carry his bags to the car. The air was crisp, the sky too bright for goodbyes. He stood there for a moment, shifting his weight, like he was waiting for something, anything, to tip the balance. "Text me when you get there," I said. "I will." He smiled, small and sincere, then got into the car. As he pulled away, he glanced back once, just long enough for our eyes to meet. Then he was gone. Weeks passed. Messages came and went. Casual updates. Work complaints. Photos of unfamiliar streets. Normal things. But beneath them all was a current neither of us named. Sometimes, late at night, I'd reread his texts and wonder what he wasn't saying. Sometimes I'd imagine him in that other city, confronting parts of himself he'd avoided for years, or burying them deeper. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed. A single message. Ethan, can I ask you something, and you promised to be honest? My heart raced as I stared at the screen, the apartment suddenly too quiet. I typed, erased, then typed again. Me. Of course. The dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I waited, breath held, knowing that whatever came next might finally force us to stop pretending. Because some doors don't close once you notice they exist. And some questions, once asked, change everything. That evening, the air was cool and still, the kind that made sounds travel farther than they should. Outside, the city hummed softly, distant traffic, a barking dog, the faint echo of someone laughing 3 floors down. Inside, everything was familiar, predictable, safe, too safe. I had lived with Ethan for nearly a year. Long enough to learn his routines without trying. Long enough to know the exact moment he'd come home from work, the way he dropped his keys into the ceramic bowl by the door, the sigh he let out before kicking off his shoes. We were comfortable, easy, the kind of roommates people envied. And that was the problem. Ethan was straight. At least, that was the story everyone, including him, told without hesitation. Girlfriends came and went. Names changed, patterns didn't. I played my role well, the quiet roommate, the friend, the observer who never crossed invisible lines. I told myself I didn't notice how the apartment felt warmer when he was around. I told myself I didn't wait for the sound of his footsteps. I told myself wanting didn't mean anything if you never acted on it. That night started like all the others. He came home late, muttering about work, disappearing into his room. I stayed in the living room, half watching a show, half lost in my thoughts. The overhead light buzzed faintly. The clock ticked too loudly. Routine wrapped itself around me. Then something broke it. A sound. Not loud, not obvious. Just out of place. I muted the TV, my chest tightening as I listened. It came again, soft, rhythmic, almost swallowed by the walls. I sat perfectly still, my pulse thudding in my ears. You're imagining it, I told myself. Don't be ridiculous. But the sound didn't go away. It came from Ethan's room. I stood, every movement careful, my body reacting before my mind caught up. The hallway light flickered, casting long shadows that made the apartment feel unfamiliar. His door was closed, as always, but the space beneath it betrayed something private, something I was never meant to hear. Guilt washed over me first. Then curiosity. Then something darker I didn't want to name. I backed away, heart racing, returning to the couch like nothing had happened. Like I could unhar it. Like pretending would put everything back where it belonged. It didn't. That night, sleep refused to come. Every small noise felt amplified. Every thought circled back to the same impossible question. What if I'm wrong about him? The idea was dangerous, tempting, terrifying. Because if Ethan wasn't who I thought he was, if the truth was closer than I'd allowed myself to believe, then the calm I'd been hiding inside was already gone. And whatever came next would change everything.